Have you ever felt so tired of learning English that you quietly asked yourself, is this even worth it? This video is not just about summer in Florida, or slow living, or love in America. It is about the moment I almost gave up on everything, and how climate, culture, marriage, and one simple English sentence changed my life forever. The question that burned me. There was a moment under the Florida sun when a single question hit harder than the heat itself. Do you live, or do you just hurry? That question did not come from a teacher, a boss, or a stranger. It came from the quiet space inside me, the place where doubt lives. When I first arrived in the United States, specifically in Florida during summer, I thought the challenge would be English. Vocabulary, pronunciation, fast conversations. I prepared for grammar tests. I did not prepare for humidity. Florida in summer is not gentle. The air feels thick, almost liquid. You step outside, and your shirt sticks to your back in minutes. The sky is bright, but the heat is heavy. And somehow, that climate mirrored my internal state. I was carrying pressure, expectations, and a silent fear of failure. Many English learners believe they lack talent. But neuroscience says something different. When the brain senses stress, it activates the amygdala. That part of the brain shifts energy toward survival. Language learning requires the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for focus and reasoning. When stress is high, the thinking brain becomes less efficient. In simple words, stress makes you feel bad at English, even when you're capable. That was me. I rushed everything. I tried to speak quickly to sound fluent. I memorized long word lists. I watched advanced videos that were too difficult. I compared myself to native speakers. I believed speed meant success. In America, everything seems fast: traffic, business, ambition. I thought my English had to match that pace. But Florida did not cooperate. The heat forced pauses. Afternoon storms rolled in slowly, building dark clouds before releasing heavy rain. Palm trees swayed lazily. The ocean moved with calm rhythm. Nature was not in a hurry. One afternoon, after failing a job interview because I could not fully understand the interviewer's rapid speech, I sat near the beach feeling defeated. I understood most of the questions, but not all. That missing 20 or 30% felt humiliating. It felt like proof that I did not belong. A dangerous thought appeared. Maybe I am not good enough for this country. That is how motivation collapses, not with noise, but with quiet self-doubt. Psychologists explain something called cognitive overload. When you try to process too much information too quickly, your working memory becomes overwhelmed. It shuts down. That is why fast English feels impossible sometimes. It is not intelligence. It is overload. Sitting there under the burning sun, sweat on my face, I asked myself, am I actually living here, or am I just chasing something? I realized I was not experiencing America. I was trying to conquer it. I was not enjoying English. I was attacking it. So I made a small decision. Not dramatic. Not heroic. Just small. I slowed down. Instead of studying 2 stressful hours a day, I practiced 30 calm minutes. I chose simple listening materials. I repeated short sentences out loud. It is very hot today. I feel tired, but I am learning. I am improving step by step. Basic sentences. Real sentences. Speaking slowly felt uncomfortable at first. I worried about sounding childish. But something surprising happened. My pronunciation improved because I paid attention to each sound. My listening improved because I stopped panicking about missing words. I focused on meaning, not perfection. Research in language acquisition supports this. Repetition in a relaxed state strengthens neural pathways more effectively than forced memorization under stress. The brain builds language like muscle, through consistent, moderate training, not extreme pressure. Florida's climate became my unexpected teacher. The weather forced me to respect limits. You cannot run fast in 95-degree heat without consequences. Your body demands rest. In the same way, your brain demands space when learning a language. I also began noticing cultural details. In Florida, strangers greet you casually. How's it going? At first, I answered too formally. Later, I learned simple responses. Pretty good. Not bad. Just enjoying the weather. These small exchanges built real confidence. They were practical English, not textbook English. Living in the United States exposed me to regional differences. Florida feels different from New York or California. The pace is slower. Conversations are relaxed. Even customer service interactions feel friendly and informal. That atmosphere supported my new approach. Slow English, real English. Another important psychological principle is self-compassion. Studies show that people who forgive their mistakes improve faster than those who criticize themselves harshly. When I stopped telling myself your English is terrible, and started saying you are still learning, my anxiety decreased. Lower anxiety meant better performance. That summer did not transform me overnight. There was no dramatic breakthrough. Instead, there was quiet progress. One day, I understood an entire podcast episode without subtitles. Another day, I answered a stranger confidently at a grocery store. Small wins created motivation. Motivation is not magic. It is chemistry. Each small success releases dopamine. Dopamine encourages repetition. Repetition creates skill. Skill builds confidence. Confidence reduces fear. And reduced fear improves language performance. All of this started with one uncomfortable question. Do you live, or do you just hurry? Under the Florida sun, I realized something simple but powerful. Fluency is not built through panic. It is built through presence. English is not a race. It is a relationship. That summer did not just teach me vocabulary. It taught me rhythm. It taught me patience. It taught me that slowing down is not weakness. Sometimes, slowing down is strategy. And maybe the real problem was never my English. Maybe the problem was that I was running when I needed to breathe. Landing in American heat. The first thing Florida taught me was not a word, a rule, or an accent. It taught me temperature. Not the kind you check on your phone, but the kind that sits on your skin and refuses to leave. The moment I stepped out of the airport, warm air wrapped around me like an invisible wall. It felt heavier than expected, thicker than logic. I remember thinking, so this is America? Then I started sweating before I even finished the thought. Back then, my English level was not terrible, but it was fragile. I could read. I could listen if people spoke slowly. But real life does not come with subtitles. In Florida, people talk while walking, smiling, chewing gum, and doing 3 things at once. Their words blend together, softened by accents and speed. My brain tried to keep up. My body tried to breathe. Both struggled. Climate shock is real. Scientists say the body needs time to adapt to new environmental conditions. The same is true for the mind. When you move to a new country, your brain processes unfamiliar sounds, rules, and social signals non-stop. That constant processing consumes energy. This is called decision fatigue. It explains why simple tasks feel exhausting in a new place. Even choosing what to eat becomes tiring. Florida summer amplified that effect. Every day felt like a test of endurance. I learned quickly that mornings were the only safe time to move fast. By noon, the heat slowed everything down. Sidewalks shimmered. Cars felt like ovens. Even native-born Floridians complained. That surprised me. If locals struggled, maybe my weakness was not failure. Maybe it was human. Language learning is deeply connected to physical comfort. Studies show that extreme heat increases irritability and reduces cognitive performance. In simple terms, when your body is uncomfortable, your brain has fewer resources to process language. That explained why my listening felt worse on hot afternoons. It was not regression. It was biology. At first, I fought the environment. I walked too fast. I scheduled too much. I forced myself to practice English even when my head felt full. I believed discipline meant ignoring discomfort. That mindset came from my old habits, not from wisdom. Then Florida pushed back. One afternoon, I nearly fainted while waiting for a bus. The sun was directly overhead. My shirt was soaked. My head felt light. A woman next to me noticed and said, slowly and clearly, "You okay?" "It's brutal today." I nodded and answered with broken confidence, "Yes, just very hot." She smiled and replied, "Welcome to Florida." That sentence stayed with me. Not because of grammar, but because of tone. She spoke slowly, naturally, without judgment. That interaction taught me something important. Real English is not perfect English. It is shared understanding. I started paying attention to how people spoke in daily life. Short sentences. Relaxed pacing. Lots of pauses. Native speakers did not rush as much as I imagined. They adjusted speed based on context. When they noticed confusion, they slowed down. Communication was cooperative, not competitive. This changed how I practiced. Instead of trying to sound advanced, I aimed to sound clear. I practiced survival phrases. "I'm new here. Could you say that again, please?" "I'm still learning English." These sentences gave me psychological safety. They reduced pressure. Pressure is the enemy of fluency. Cultural differences became more visible as days passed. In Florida, casual friendliness is common. People greet strangers. They comment on weather. Small talk is not optional, it is social glue. At first, small talk felt meaningless. Later, I realized it was training. Low-risk conversation practice, repeated daily. Policy differences also shaped daily life. In the United States, many systems expect you to speak up. Customer service, healthcare, paperwork, everything involves explanation. Silence is often interpreted as confusion or consent. That forced me to use English, even when I felt insecure. Avoidance was not an option. But again, Florida slowed me down in the best way. Because of the heat, people linger indoors. Libraries, cafes, grocery stores become social spaces. I spent time listening. Not studying, just listening. Background conversations. Announcements. Casual jokes. Passive exposure matters. Linguists call this comprehensible input. The brain absorbs patterns without conscious effort. I stopped translating every word in my head. Translation creates delay. Instead, I focused on intent. Tone. Body language. This reduced cognitive load. My comprehension improved naturally. Another shift happened quietly. I stopped comparing my English to others. Comparison triggers anxiety. Anxiety blocks learning. When I accepted my pace, my brain relaxed. Relaxation improves memory consolidation. Science supports this, but you feel it before you understand it. Florida's climate taught me to respect limits. You cannot fight heat, you adapt to it. Shade. Water. Rest. The same principle applies to language learning. You do not attack English. You create conditions where English grows. I scheduled practice during cooler hours. I listened to slow stories at night. I repeated phrases while walking under palm trees in the evening breeze. Language became part of life, not a separate battle. One night, after a long day, I realized something quietly beautiful. I had spent the entire day thinking in English without forcing it. Not perfectly. Not constantly. But naturally. That moment did not feel dramatic. It felt normal. And that is the point. Landing in American heat taught me that adaptation beats ambition. Climate changes behavior. Culture shapes language. And progress happens when you stop resisting reality. Florida did not make me fluent. It made me flexible. And flexibility, more than speed, is what allows a learner to survive, adapt, and eventually thrive. When English felt heavy. There is a specific kind of silence that only language learners understand. It happens when someone asks you a simple question, and your mind goes completely blank. Not because you do not know the answer. Not because you are not intelligent. But because your brain freezes under pressure. That silence feels heavy. That silence feels embarrassing. That silence almost convinced me to quit. By the third month in Florida, the excitement of arrival had faded. The beaches were still beautiful. The sunsets were still dramatic. But reality had settled in. English was no longer an adventure. It was a daily requirement. Ordering coffee. Making phone calls. Filling out forms. Understanding lease agreements. Every interaction required mental energy. And slowly, English began to feel heavy. The problem was not vocabulary. I had studied for years before coming to the United States. I knew grammar rules. I could pass written tests. But real conversations moved unpredictably. People interrupted each other. They used slang. They shortened words. Gonna. Wanna. Kinda. Those sounds blurred together. My listening skills felt weaker than ever. There is a psychological reason for this. When you operate in a second language, your working memory carries a higher load. You are decoding sounds, translating meaning, organizing responses, and monitoring pronunciation at the same time. That multitasking increases cognitive strain. After several hours, mental fatigue appears. Mental fatigue is dangerous because it looks like incompetence. I started misinterpreting tiredness as failure. One afternoon, I tried to call a customer service hotline. Automated menus spoke quickly. Press 1 for English. I pressed 1. The representative spoke with a regional accent I was not used to. After asking her to repeat twice, I felt ashamed. My heart rate increased. My palms became sweaty. I ended the call early, pretending the line was bad. That small event affected me more than it should have. Shame is powerful. Neuroscience shows that social embarrassment activates similar brain regions as physical pain. When we feel judged, even if no one is judging us, our brain treats it as threat. And threat reduces language performance even more. A cycle began forming. I avoided difficult conversations. Avoidance reduced practice. Reduced practice slowed progress. Slower progress increased frustration. Frustration increased avoidance. That is how motivation quietly disappears. I also compared myself to others. I met international students who spoke confidently. Some had stronger accents than mine, yet they spoke without hesitation. I thought confidence came from perfect grammar. Later, I realized confidence comes from tolerance for mistakes. Perfectionism was my hidden enemy. Perfectionism creates unrealistic standards. It says, if you cannot say it perfectly, do not say it. That mindset blocks communication. Language is messy. Native speakers make mistakes. They pause. They restart sentences. They forget words. Fluency is not perfection. Fluency is flow. But when English feels heavy, logic disappears. One evening, I sat alone in my apartment, exhausted. I opened a notebook filled with vocabulary lists. Hundreds of words. Many highlighted. Many forgotten. I stared at them and felt nothing. No excitement. No motivation. Just pressure. That night, I almost told myself, maybe this is not for me. What saved me was not a motivational speech. It was a small realization. The heaviness was not coming from English itself. It was coming from how I was approaching it. I was studying English like a subject, not living it like a tool. Research in second language acquisition emphasizes meaningful input. The brain retains language more effectively when it connects to emotion and personal relevance. Memorizing isolated words creates shallow memory. Using language in meaningful context builds durable neural networks. So I changed my method. Instead of memorizing long lists, I chose short, real-life stories. I listened to simple narratives about daily experiences. I repeated entire sentences, not single words. I was nervous during my interview. The weather made me tired. I am adjusting to a new culture. These sentences described my life. That emotional connection strengthened retention. I also reduced self-criticism. When I made a mistake, I did not label myself as incapable. I corrected gently. Self-compassion lowers cortisol levels. Lower cortisol improves cognitive flexibility. In practical terms, kindness improves learning. Gradually, English felt lighter. Not easier overnight. Just lighter. I allowed pauses in conversation. Silence is not failure. It is processing time. Native speakers pause too. I practiced breathing before responding. Slower breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system. That calms anxiety. Calm brain, clearer speech. I also embraced something uncomfortable, speaking imperfectly in public. Every imperfect conversation built resilience. The brain adapts to repeated exposure. What once triggered fear becomes normal. Florida's slow rhythm helped again. People were patient. Casual. Less rushed than I imagined America would be. That environment supported experimentation. One day, after a long conversation at a grocery store about hurricane season, I realized I had spoken for several minutes without mentally translating. The words were not perfect, but they were mine. English no longer felt like a weight I carried. It felt like a bridge I was building. If you are in the phase where English feels heavy, understand this. Heaviness often means growth is happening beneath the surface. Muscles feel heavy when they are strengthening. The brain feels heavy when it is building new connections. The key is not to push harder. The key is to adjust smarter. When I stopped treating English as an exam and started treating it as part of my daily life, the pressure decreased. And when pressure decreased, progress increased. The heaviness did not disappear completely, but it stopped controlling me. And that was the first real victory. Slow living, slow speaking. Imagine trying to sprint across hot sand at noon in Florida. Your feet burn. Your lungs protest. Your body slows you down whether you like it or not. That is exactly what happened to my English. I was trying to sprint toward fluency in a climate designed for slow movement. Florida summer does not reward speed. The humidity wraps around your chest. Even breathing feels heavier. At first, I saw that as an obstacle. Later, I understood it as training. The culture in many parts of the United States celebrates productivity. Move fast. Achieve more. Optimize everything. That mindset is powerful in business. But in language learning, constant urgency can backfire. When you rush speech, pronunciation suffers. When you rush listening, comprehension drops. When you rush progress, confidence collapses. One afternoon, after struggling through another fast conversation, I noticed something simple. The local cashier was not speaking quickly. She was speaking clearly. There is a difference. Clarity is intentional. Speed is careless. That observation changed my practice. Instead of trying to speak faster, I focused on speaking slower and clearer. I paid attention to each vowel sound. I allowed small pauses between ideas. I just moved here. Pause. I'm still learning English. Pause. Thank you for your patience. Those pauses felt uncomfortable at first. Silence can feel like weakness. But silence is actually structure. From a neurological perspective, slowing speech gives the brain time to coordinate breathing, articulation, and word retrieval. It reduces cognitive overload. When the brain feels less rushed, fluency improves naturally. Slowness is not the opposite of fluency. It is the foundation of fluency. I began practicing what I call slow English sessions. Every evening, when the Florida sun softened and the air cooled slightly, I would sit by my window and read short passages out loud. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just steadily. I focused on rhythm. English has a musical quality, stressed syllables, reduced vowels, connected sounds. When spoken slowly, that music becomes easier to hear. Research in phonology shows that deliberate practice of stress patterns improves intelligibility more than increasing vocabulary size. In other words, how you say something often matters more than how many words you know. That was liberating. I did not need 10,000 new words. I needed control over the words I already had. Florida's slow living culture reinforced this lesson. Neighbors chatted casually in driveways. People lingered at outdoor cafes despite the heat. Conversations drifted from weather to family to weekend plans. Nobody rushed to finish a sentence. Interruptions were gentle, not aggressive. In that environment, I felt safer experimenting with slower speech. There is also a psychological concept called mirror neurons. When we observe others' behavior, our brain subconsciously imitates their patterns. By spending time around relaxed speakers, my own rhythm began to soften. My sentences became smoother. My tone became more natural. I also changed how I listened. Instead of replaying fast podcasts repeatedly and feeling frustrated, I chose slower storytelling content. I listened actively, then paused, then repeated sentences. Shadowing became part of my routine. I would play a short sentence and repeat it immediately after, matching tone and pacing. This technique strengthens auditory motor connections in the brain. Over time, pronunciation improves automatically. Another unexpected benefit of slow living was emotional clarity. When life moves slower, thoughts become more visible. I realized that much of my anxiety about English was not about language. It was about identity. I wanted to sound intelligent. I wanted to sound capable. Slowing down forced me to accept that growth takes time. Florida storms offered another metaphor. They build gradually. Dark clouds gather. Wind increases. Then heavy rain falls. Afterward, everything feels fresh. My progress worked the same way. Weeks of slow practice felt invisible. Then suddenly, comprehension jumped. Consistency beats intensity. There is strong evidence supporting spaced repetition and moderate daily practice over long, exhausting sessions. Memory consolidation happens during rest, especially during sleep. By reducing study pressure and increasing consistency, I allowed my brain to do its work. Slow living also changed how I approached mistakes. When you speak slowly, you notice errors earlier. You correct gently. You stay in control. When you rush, mistakes multiply and confidence drops. Slower speech created a feedback loop of improvement. One evening, during a casual conversation with a neighbor about hurricane season preparation, I realized I was speaking calmly, without mental panic. My sentences were not advanced, but they were steady. My voice did not shake. My breathing remained even. That moment felt powerful. Not because I sounded like a native speaker, but because I sounded like myself. Language learning is not about transformation into someone else. It is about expansion. Slow speaking allowed my personality to come through. Humor, warmth, curiosity. All of it became clearer when I stopped racing. Florida taught me that pace is personal. You do not compete with other learners. You build your own rhythm. When you slow down, you notice more. You absorb more. You remember more. And maybe the most surprising lesson was this: slowing down did not delay my progress. It accelerated it. Because real fluency grows in calm soil, not in panic. And under the wide, humid skies of Florida, I finally learned how to breathe between words. Cultural shocks and small kindness. No one tells you that culture shock is not a single dramatic moment. It is a series of small surprises that slowly rearrange your understanding of normal. In Florida, those surprises appear daily, sometimes in funny ways, sometimes in uncomfortable ones. Each one quietly reshaped how I lived and how I learned English. The first shock was friendliness. In many places, strangers do not talk much. In Florida, people greet you in elevators, grocery stores, parking lots. How's it going? Stay cool out there. You surviving this heat? At first, I overanalyzed every question. Was it serious? Did they expect a detailed answer? Should I explain my real emotions? Later, I understood something important about American small talk. It is not interrogation. It is connection. These short exchanges are social rituals. They create warmth without demanding depth. From a language learning perspective, small talk is powerful training. It is low risk. The topics are predictable: weather, traffic, weekend plans. Predictability reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety improves fluency. Psychologists call this the affective filter. When stress is low, language flows more easily into the brain. Florida's climate gave everyone something in common. The heat became a shared experience. Complaining about humidity turned into instant conversation. This humidity is wild today. Feels like walking through soup. Humor softened everything. Then came the second shock: direct communication. In the United States, especially in customer service or workplace settings, people often speak clearly and directly. I need this by Friday. That policy doesn't allow exceptions. You'll need to call this number. There is less indirect language compared to some cultures. At first, I interpreted directness as coldness. Later, I recognized it as efficiency. Understanding cultural communication styles improved my listening skills. Instead of searching for hidden meanings, I focused on literal meaning. This reduced mental guessing. Less guessing meant less cognitive fatigue. Policy differences also shaped my experience. Everyday systems in the U.S., banking, healthcare, insurance, require personal responsibility. You schedule appointments yourself. You follow up. You ask questions. No one automatically explains everything. That expectation forced me to use English actively. I could not remain passive. The first time I visited a clinic alone, I felt nervous. Forms were long. Questions were detailed. But each completed form built confidence. Every phone call I survived strengthened my speaking skills. Real-life necessity became my teacher. Another cultural difference appeared in family life. In Florida, I observed diverse family structures, single parents, blended families, multicultural households. Conversations about marriage, parenting, and independence were open. People shared personal stories casually. That openness encouraged me to speak honestly about my own journey. There is also a cultural emphasis on positivity. Americans often respond with optimism. You'll figure it out. You're doing great. At first, I thought these phrases were automatic. But repeated exposure to encouragement influences mindset. Research in social psychology shows that supportive environments increase resilience and learning persistence. Small kindness became my unexpected support system. A neighbor once helped me understand hurricane preparation. She explained evacuation zones, emergency kits, and local warnings. She spoke slowly when she noticed my hesitation. That patience made me feel respected, not inferior. Respect lowers defensive behavior. When we do not feel judged, we experiment more freely with language. Experimentation leads to growth. Food culture brought another adjustment. Portions were larger. Grocery stores offered overwhelming choices. Restaurant menus included unfamiliar items. Instead of feeling embarrassed about asking questions, I practiced curiosity. What's in this? How spicy is it? These simple questions expanded both vocabulary and confidence. Climate influenced lifestyle deeply. In summer, outdoor activity decreases during midday heat. Social life shifts to evenings. That rhythm changed how I scheduled English practice. Mornings for study. Evenings for conversation. Aligning with local lifestyle reduced stress. There were uncomfortable moments too. Humor sometimes moved quickly. Cultural references in TV shows confused me. Political discussions introduced new vocabulary. Instead of avoiding confusion, I began writing down phrases I did not understand. Later, I researched them calmly. Curiosity replaced frustration. Over time, I realized cultural shock is not proof of incompatibility. It is evidence of expansion. The brain builds new neural connections when exposed to unfamiliar norms. This adaptation strengthens cognitive flexibility, a skill strongly linked to successful language acquisition. Florida, with its mix of retirees, immigrants, tourists, and locals, became a living classroom. Accents varied. Backgrounds differed. Conversations reflected diversity. Exposure to multiple speaking styles improved my listening tolerance. Most importantly, I learned that integration is gradual. You do not wake up one day fully adapted. You accumulate small moments of understanding. A joke you finally get. A phrase you use naturally. A cultural reference you recognize. Kindness plays a central role in this process. Language grows best in safe environments. Small smiles, patient explanations, casual encouragement. These gestures lower barriers more effectively than formal lessons. Cultural shock once felt like proof that I did not belong. Now, I see it as proof that I was growing. Each surprise forced adjustment. Each adjustment strengthened resilience. Each conversation added one more layer of confidence. Florida did not just expose differences in climate or policy. It revealed that adaptation is built from small, human moments. And sometimes, one kind sentence can carry you further than perfect grammar ever could. Love under the summer sun. Love does not wait for perfect grammar. It does not check your pronunciation before entering your life. It arrives in ordinary moments, under ordinary skies. For me, it arrived under the blazing summer sun of Florida, when my English was still careful and my confidence still fragile. We met in a place that smelled like sunscreen and coffee. A small beachside cafe where the air conditioner worked too hard and the windows fogged from humidity. I was reading a simple English short story out loud to myself, quietly, but not quietly enough. He smiled and asked, "Are you practicing or performing?" I laughed, embarrassed, and answered, "Practicing. Definitely not performing." That was the beginning. Falling in love in a second language feels different. Every word carries extra weight. You think before you speak. You choose safe vocabulary. You worry about misunderstanding tone. Romance in English was not dramatic for me at first. It was cautious. Psychologists say that vulnerability increases bonding. But speaking in a second language already makes you vulnerable. Your mistakes are visible. Your pauses are longer. Your personality feels partially hidden behind limited vocabulary. I wondered if he was seeing the real me, or a simplified version. Our early conversations were slow. He noticed when I searched for words. He waited. That waiting felt like kindness. In fast conversations, I often felt left behind. With him, silence felt comfortable. Climate shaped our relationship too. Florida summer forces closeness. Afternoon storms trap you indoors. Heat slows your pace. We spent hours talking while thunder rolled outside. Those long conversations became my English classroom. He explained cultural references I did not understand. I asked questions about expressions. What does "take it easy" really mean? Why do people say "no worries"? Instead of laughing, he demonstrated. Context became my teacher. Love accelerated my listening skills without pressure. When emotion is involved, attention increases. Neuroscience shows that emotional experiences enhance memory consolidation. I remembered phrases he used because they mattered to me. But love across cultures also creates misunderstanding. One evening, I misinterpreted a casual joke as criticism. My limited understanding of tone created tension. I felt insecure. I worried that language differences would always separate us. Communication is the foundation of relationships. If my English was imperfect, would our connection be fragile too? We talked about it slowly. He told me something simple. I care more about what you mean than how you say it. That sentence changed my fear. Meaning over perfection. That principle applies to language learning and relationships. Communication is not a performance. It is connection. Cultural differences appeared in subtle ways. In my culture, emotional expression might be more indirect. In his, direct communication was normal. If something bothers you, just say it, he would tell me. That directness once felt intense. Later, it felt freeing. Policy and practical life also entered our story. Discussions about future plans, work permits, legal paperwork, health insurance, required serious conversations. These topics forced me to expand my vocabulary. Words like commitment, responsibility, stability. Love was not only romantic. It was logistical. There were moments I felt overwhelmed. Loving someone in a foreign language means you sometimes cannot express complex emotions exactly the way you want. You simplify feelings. You shorten explanations. But sometimes simplicity is powerful. I feel scared. I need time. I trust you. Short sentences. Honest meaning. Research in intercultural relationships shows that couples who openly discuss communication differences build stronger long-term bonds. Instead of pretending misunderstandings did not exist, we named them. I think I misunderstood you. Can you explain that again? These phrases strengthened both our relationship and my English. Florida evenings became our ritual. We walked by the ocean after sunset when the heat softened. We talked about childhood memories, dreams, family expectations. Those conversations expanded my vocabulary naturally. Words attached to emotion stay longer in memory. I also noticed how love reduced my anxiety. When you feel emotionally safe, cortisol levels decrease. Lower cortisol improves cognitive performance. My English flowed more smoothly around him because I was relaxed. But it was not always easy. There were moments of frustration when I could not express humor quickly. Timing matters in jokes. Delayed punchlines feel awkward. I sometimes stayed quiet to avoid embarrassment. He encouraged me gently. Take your time. That patience allowed growth. Gradually, I stopped translating in my head during our conversations. Thoughts began forming directly in English. Not perfectly. Not academically. But authentically. Love became my immersion program. Not because he corrected my grammar constantly. He did not. But because real conversation demands presence. You listen closely when someone matters to you. You search for clarity when emotions are involved. Summer in Florida became more than heat and humidity. It became a season of emotional expansion. I learned that language and love share something important. Both require patience. You cannot rush understanding. You cannot force connection. You build both through attention. Under that relentless Florida sun, I discovered that my English did not have to be flawless to be lovable. My accent did not reduce my value. My pauses did not make me less worthy. Love did not fix my English. But it reminded me why communication matters. And sometimes, that reminder is stronger than any textbook lesson. Marriage, papers, and pressure. Love feels light in the beginning. Paperwork does not. At some point, romance meets reality. Conversations about the future slowly transform into discussions about legal forms, financial responsibility, and long-term plans. In the United States, marriage is not just emotional commitment. It is documentation, signatures, interviews, and deadlines. And for someone still building confidence in English, that reality can feel overwhelming. When we decided to get married, excitement mixed with anxiety. Not because of doubt about love, but because of everything surrounding it. Immigration policies, residency status, joint bank accounts, insurance forms. Each topic required precise communication. This was not small talk about the weather anymore. It was serious English. Legal vocabulary feels different from conversational English. Words like affidavit, eligibility, sponsorship, and compliance do not appear in beginner textbooks. They appear in official letters. And official letters do not speak slowly. I remember opening one envelope and reading the first paragraph 3 times. The sentences were long, formal, structured. My brain felt heavy again. Stress returned. Psychologists describe something called threat perception. When stakes are high, the brain shifts into protective mode. That shift reduces cognitive flexibility. In simple terms, when you are afraid of making a mistake, you process information less efficiently. Marriage in a new country amplifies that effect. Every signature feels important. Every interview question feels like a test. During one appointment, an officer asked detailed questions about our relationship timeline. My heart raced. I understood the questions, but pressure slowed my responses. I worried that a pause would look suspicious. That fear made my sentences less natural. Pressure does not improve performance. It distorts it. Financial stress added another layer. Starting life together in Florida was not cheap. Rent, utilities, health insurance, car payments. Discussions about budgeting required vocabulary I had rarely practiced. Words like deductible, installment, interest rate. Learning English through love was romantic. Learning English through bills was practical. But practicality builds strength. Marriage forced deeper communication. We had to discuss expectations about family roles, career goals, and long-term location plans. Cultural differences surfaced clearly. In some cultures, extended family involvement is normal. In others, independence is prioritized. Negotiating these perspectives required patience and clarity. Clarity requires language. There were nights when I felt exhausted, not from love, but from translation. Explaining emotions in a second language while also understanding complex policies drained my mental energy. I questioned myself again. Was I strong enough for this life? One evening, after reviewing documents for hours, I said quietly, "I'm afraid I'll misunderstand something important." He looked at me calmly and replied, "We'll read it together." That sentence reduced my anxiety more than any grammar lesson. Shared responsibility changes everything. Research on stress resilience shows that social support significantly lowers cortisol levels. Lower stress improves cognitive performance. In real terms, feeling supported improves language ability. Instead of facing paperwork alone, we turned it into a team process. We read documents aloud together. I asked questions without embarrassment. When I did not understand a phrase, we paused and clarified. That repetition strengthened my comprehension of formal English. Marriage also introduced me to structured communication. We created shared calendars. We wrote lists. We planned budgets. Writing practical English regularly improved my functional fluency. Not poetic English. Useful English. There were disagreements too. Stress can magnify small misunderstandings. Once, during a discussion about finances, I misinterpreted his tone as frustration with me. In reality, he was frustrated with the situation. Language nuance matters deeply in emotional conversations. We had to learn to separate tone from intention. We created a simple rule: if something feels unclear, ask directly. Did you mean that? Are you upset with me? These short clarifying questions prevented assumptions from growing. Policy deadlines also tested our patience. Waiting periods. Processing times. Uncertainty. Living between statuses can feel unstable. That instability affects identity. Am I settled? Am I temporary? Those questions linger in the background. English became both shield and bridge. Shield, because understanding legal language protected me from mistakes. Bridge, because communicating clearly strengthened our partnership. Florida's summer continued around us. Storm warnings. Hurricane season preparations. Life did not pause for paperwork. That contrast felt symbolic. Nature moves forward regardless of administrative stress. Slowly, something shifted inside me. Instead of seeing English as an obstacle during marriage, I began seeing it as empowerment. Every document I understood independently increased my confidence. Every appointment I navigated successfully reinforced resilience. Marriage did not reduce pressure immediately, but it changed my perspective on it. Pressure can break you, or it can build you. The difference lies in support and mindset. In the beginning, I thought my imperfect English made me weaker in this process. Over time, I realized vulnerability made me stronger. Asking for clarification showed responsibility. Admitting confusion prevented errors. Marriage in a foreign country is not just about romance. It is about partnership under pressure. And under that pressure, my English did not collapse. It matured. Not dramatically. Not magically. But steadily. And steady growth is stronger than sudden success. The night I almost gave up. There is always one night that tests everything. Not a dramatic movie scene. Not a public breakdown. Just a quiet evening when exhaustion becomes louder than hope. Mine came during hurricane season in Florida, when the sky had been gray for days and the air felt heavy with waiting. We had just received another update about paperwork delays. Financial pressure was building. My job situation felt unstable. English, which had once started to feel lighter, suddenly felt complicated again. Stress has a way of reopening old insecurities. That night, rain hit the windows in steady waves. The power flickered once, then stabilized. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone, scrolling through social media. I saw friends back home posting promotions, celebrations, easy smiles. My mind began its quiet comparison. They look stable. They sound fluent. They seem confident. Comparison is dangerous because it edits reality. It shows you someone else's highlights and hides their struggle. But in that moment, logic did not matter. I felt behind. Language fatigue returned. When you live daily life in a second language, small stress multiplies. Every phone call takes effort. Every email requires attention. Every misunderstanding feels personal. Psychologists describe something called ego depletion. When you make continuous decisions or manage stress for long periods, your mental resources decrease. Self-control weakens. Negative thoughts become louder. That was happening to me. I opened a voice recording app and tried to practice English out loud. My voice sounded tired. My sentences felt forced. I stopped halfway and whispered, "Maybe this is too much." The idea of quitting did not appear as a dramatic escape. It appeared as relief. The idea of returning to a familiar environment, speaking my first language comfortably, sounded peaceful. Rain continued outside. Thunder rolled softly in the distance. I imagined packing everything. I imagined explaining to people, it just didn't work out. That sentence felt easier than continuing to struggle. And then something small happened. He walked into the kitchen, saw my expression, and asked gently, "Long day?" I nodded. He sat down and said, "Talk to me." I hesitated. Expressing deep frustration in English still felt vulnerable. But I tried. I feel tired. Not just physically. I feel like I'm always catching up. With language. With life. The words were simple. Not dramatic. Not poetic. But they were honest. He listened without interrupting. Then he said something that changed the direction of that night. You don't have to win everything at once. That sentence stayed with me. Not because it was complex. Because it was true. Language learning often becomes tied to identity. When progress slows, self-worth feels threatened. But growth does not happen in straight lines. It moves in waves. Just like the ocean outside during hurricane season. Neuroscience supports this pattern. Skill acquisition includes plateaus. Periods where improvement seems invisible. During these plateaus, the brain is reorganizing information beneath the surface. Lack of visible progress does not mean lack of development. But when you are inside the struggle, that scientific explanation feels distant. He continued, "You've built so much already. You're not starting from zero." I thought about that. 3 months earlier, I struggled with basic conversations. Now, I could discuss legal documents, financial planning, and emotional concerns. My English was not perfect. But it was real. The problem was not ability. It was expectation. Expectation creates invisible pressure. Social media amplifies it. Cultural narratives about success intensify it. In the United States, achievement is often celebrated loudly. But quiet resilience rarely gets attention. That night, I realized something uncomfortable. I had been measuring my journey against unrealistic timelines. I expected fluency within months, emotional stability without stress, marriage without pressure, adaptation without discomfort. That is not how growth works. We talked for hours while the storm continued outside. I admitted my fear of failure. He admitted his own worries about finances and responsibility. Vulnerability reduced isolation. There is strong evidence that verbalizing stress reduces its intensity. When emotions are labeled with words, activity in the amygdala decreases. In simple terms, speaking your fear weakens its control. That night, one simple English sentence became my turning point. I'm not quitting. I said it quietly. Not as a declaration to the world. Just to myself. I'm not quitting. The sentence was grammatically simple, but emotionally powerful. Persistence is rarely loud. It is often a quiet decision made in a kitchen during a storm. After that conversation, I did not suddenly feel fearless. The next morning still brought responsibilities. Bills still existed. Policies still required attention. But something shifted internally. Quitting was no longer an option. Not because of pride. Because of perspective. Summer in Florida had already taught me to slow down. Marriage had taught me to share pressure. That stormy night taught me endurance. Language learning is not just vocabulary accumulation. It is emotional resilience training. And sometimes, the most important sentence you learn is not academic. It is personal. I'm not quitting. Under the sound of rain against the windows, that sentence became stronger than my doubt. And that is how I stayed. The day I almost quit. If you are using this video for slow English listening practice, take a deep breath. Today's part is emotional. This is the day I almost quit. Not just English. Everything. It was a cold morning. I woke up before my alarm rang. My room was dark. I stared at the ceiling and felt something heavy inside my chest. Have you ever felt that? When you wake up and you already feel tired? That morning, I did not want to study English. I did not want to open my notebook. I did not want to listen to slow English stories. I felt stuck. For weeks, I had been practicing every day. I listened carefully. I repeated sentences. I tried to improve my pronunciation. But my progress felt slow. Too slow. When I spoke, I still made mistakes. When I watched American videos, I still missed words. When I tried to think in English, my mind went blank. I began to ask myself, maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe English is not for me. Those thoughts were dangerous. Very dangerous. Because they sounded reasonable. That day, I had a short online conversation with a friend from the United States. I wanted to practice speaking English naturally. We started talking about simple things. Weather, work, daily routines. But suddenly, I forgot a very basic word. A simple word. My mind stopped. There was silence. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. My heart started beating fast. I felt embarrassed. Finally, I switched to my native language. The conversation ended quickly. After that call, I closed my laptop. I sat quietly. And I thought, I should quit. If you are learning English in 2026, you probably know this feeling. Learning a language is not just grammar and vocabulary. It is emotion, confidence, fear, patience. On social media, everything looks easy. People say, learn English fast. Become fluent in 30 days. Speak like a native in 3 months. But real life is different. Real English learning is slow. Sometimes boring. Sometimes painful. And sometimes lonely. That afternoon, I did something unusual. I did not study. I did not listen to any English audio. I went outside. I walked to a small park near my house. Children were playing. An old man was reading a newspaper. 2 teenagers were laughing loudly. Life continued. Even though I felt like giving up. I sat on a bench and asked myself a simple question. Why did I start learning English? Not for perfection. Not to impress anyone. I started because I wanted more opportunities. I wanted to understand the world. I wanted to watch movies without subtitles. I wanted to speak confidently. I wanted freedom. And suddenly, I realized something important. If I quit now, I will feel worse. Because regret lasts longer than failure. So I made a small decision. Not a big promise. Not a dramatic change. Just one small decision. I will not quit today. That's all. Not forever. Just today. That night, I opened one slow English listening video. Only 10 minutes. I did not try to be perfect. I did not repeat every sentence. I just listened. Calmly. Without pressure. And something changed. The sentences felt clearer. Not because my English improved in one day, but because my mind was calmer. I understood more than I expected. Then I repeated a few lines. slowly, softly, without fear. The next day, I practiced speaking alone. I looked in the mirror. I said, "Hello. My name is." Simple sentences. Very basic. But this time, I smiled. Because I did not quit. And that was progress. Sometimes progress is not better grammar. Sometimes progress is staying. If you are watching this for Learn English through Story Practice, remember this. Fluency is not a straight line. It goes up. It goes down. It stops. It moves again. You will have days when you feel powerful. And days when you feel small. Both days are normal. 1 week after that difficult day, I had another online conversation. I was nervous. But I did not expect perfection. We talked about daily habits. And this time, when I forgot a word, I did something different. I described it. I used simple English. I said, "It's the thing you use to open a bottle." And my friend understood. We both laughed. It was not perfect English. But it was communication. And that is the real goal. Here is what I learned on the day I almost quit. 1. Motivation disappears sometimes. Discipline stays. 2. Progress is invisible before it becomes visible. 3. Quitting feels easier today, but harder tomorrow. 4. You are allowed to feel tired. 5. You are not allowed to give up on yourself. Learning English in America or anywhere in the world takes time. But time will pass anyway. So you can choose. 1 year from now, you can say, "I quit." Or you can say, "I continued." Tonight, if you feel discouraged, do not promise to study 5 hours. Just promise 10 minutes. Just promise 1 page. Just promise 1 conversation. Just promise not to quit today. This is part 9 of our slow English listening practice story. And maybe it is the most important part. Because every learner has a day 9. A day when quitting feels close. But if you stay, part 10 will come. And it will be stronger. So breathe. Listen again. Repeat slowly. And remember, you are not behind. You are learning. And you are still here. The small breakthrough. Take a slow breath. This is part 10 of our slow English listening practice story. If you almost quit before, this part is for you. Because something changed. Not in a dramatic way. Not like in a movie. But in a quiet, powerful way. After the day I almost quit, I made a simple rule. Every day, I would practice English. Even if it was only 15 minutes. No excuses. No pressure to be perfect. Just consistency. At first, nothing felt different. I still spoke slowly. I still searched for words. I still made grammar mistakes. But something inside me became stronger. I stopped asking, "Am I good enough?" and started asking, "Did I practice today?" That small change in thinking changed everything. One evening, I was watching a short American interview on YouTube. Usually, I needed subtitles. Always. But that night, I decided to try without them. At first, I understood maybe 40%. Then 50%. Then, something surprising happened. I stopped translating in my head. I just listened. And the meaning came naturally. Not every word, but enough to understand the conversation. I paused the video. I looked at the screen. And I smiled. It was a small breakthrough. But it felt big. If you are using this video to learn English through story, listen carefully to this idea. Breakthroughs do not announce themselves. They happen quietly. You may not notice your progress because you are too focused on your mistakes. But progress is happening. Even when you cannot see it clearly. The next day, something even more interesting happened. I was at a coffee shop. Two tourists were sitting at the table next to me. They were speaking English. Fast English. Natural English. Normally, I would ignore it. I would feel nervous. But this time, I just listened. Not secretly. Not with fear. Just listening. And I understood their main idea. They were talking about travel plans. Flights. Hotels. Weather. Simple topics. But I understood. Without subtitles. Without pausing. Without repeating. I felt calm. And proud. Not because I understood everything. But because I understood enough. That night, I practiced speaking again. This time, I recorded my voice. In the past, I hated doing that. I felt embarrassed. My accent sounded strange. My sentences were not smooth. But I pressed record anyway. I talked for 3 minutes about my day. Then I listened to the recording. Yes, I heard mistakes. Yes, my pronunciation was not perfect. But I also heard improvement. My sentences were longer. My pauses were shorter. My voice sounded more confident. It was not perfect English. But it was real progress. If you are serious about English Listening Practice 2026, here is something important. Confidence grows from evidence. not from positive thinking alone. When you practice consistently, you create proof. Proof that you are improving. Proof that you can understand more. Proof that you can speak more clearly. And that proof builds real confidence. 1 week later, I had another online conversation. This time, I did not prepare sentences before the call. I did not write notes. I just trusted myself. At the beginning, I was nervous. But after 5 minutes, something felt different. I was not translating every sentence in my head. I was thinking directly in English. Simple English. Clear English. But direct. The conversation lasted 30 minutes. 30 minutes. That had never happened before. When the call ended, I realized something powerful. English was no longer just a subject. It was becoming a tool. A real communication tool. Here is the truth about language learning. You will not wake up one day suddenly fluent. Instead, you will notice small moments. You understand a joke. You reply without thinking too much. You watch a short video without subtitles. You speak without fear for 2 full minutes. These small moments are your breakthrough. Not perfection. Not native level speed. Just progress. During this time, I also changed how I studied. Before, I focused too much on difficult grammar, advanced vocabulary, complex expressions. Now, I focused on clarity, common phrases, daily conversations. I practiced simple sentences again and again. Because fluency is built on simple things done well. Not complicated things done once. If you are listening slowly right now, repeat this sentence in your mind. Small progress is still progress. Say it again. Small progress is still progress. When you study English consistently, your brain adapts. Your ears adjust to new sounds. Your tongue becomes more flexible. Your confidence becomes stronger. It is science. It is repetition. It is patience. One evening, I realized something surprising. I was thinking about my plans for the weekend. And the thoughts were in English. Not completely. Not perfectly. But naturally. I did not force it. It just happened. That moment felt quiet. But powerful. Because it showed me something important. English was no longer outside of me. It was slowly becoming part of me. If you are on your own English learning journey in 2026, remember this. The breakthrough you are waiting for may already be happening. You just have to notice it. Did you understand more today than last month? Did you speak longer than last week? Did you feel less afraid than yesterday? That is growth. Part 10 is not about success. It is about momentum. When you do not quit. When you practice even on difficult days. When you forgive your mistakes. Momentum builds. And momentum creates change. So tonight, after this slow English listening practice, ask yourself one question. What small improvement did I make this week? Write it down. Remember it. Celebrate it. Because small wins become big results. You almost quit before. But you stayed. And now, you are stronger. Part 11 is coming. And it will test you again. But this time, you are not the same learner. You are more patient. More aware. More confident. Keep listening. Keep repeating. Keep going. Your breakthrough has already begun. When English became my voice. Take a deep breath. If you have stayed until now, something inside you is stronger. Today, I want to tell you about the moment English stopped feeling like a subject and started feeling like my voice. After my small breakthrough, I continued my daily routine. 15 to 20 minutes of focused listening. Slow repetition. Shadowing simple sentences. Speaking out loud, even when no one was around. It was not dramatic. It was not exciting every day. But it was steady. And steady changed me. One morning, I received an unexpected message. A friend invited me to join a small online group discussion in English. 5 people. Different countries. Different accents. Real conversation. In the past, I would have refused immediately. I would have said, "Sorry, I'm busy." But this time, I paused. I felt nervous. Very nervous. But I remembered something important. Growth lives outside comfort. So I said yes. The meeting started at 8 p.m. I prepared nothing. No written script. No translation notes. Just myself. The first few minutes were difficult. Everyone spoke naturally. Sometimes fast. Sometimes overlapping. My heart was beating loudly. I focused on listening. Not on speaking perfectly. Just listening. Gradually, I understood the topic. We were talking about habits that changed our lives. Simple topic. Deep answers. When it was my turn to speak, I felt the old fear. But something new was there too. Trust. I started slowly. I used to think progress had to be fast. My voice was not perfect. My grammar was not perfect. But I continued. And no one interrupted. No one laughed. They listened. really listened. If you are using this for Learn English through story practice, pause and imagine that moment. You are speaking. People understand you. They respond. They ask questions. That is communication. That is the real goal of English Listening Practice 2026. Not perfection. Connection. During that discussion, something shifted inside me. I stopped thinking about mistakes. I started thinking about meaning. When I forgot a word, I explained it differently. When I made a grammar mistake, I kept going. And the conversation flowed. After 30 minutes, I realized something powerful. I was not surviving the conversation. I was participating. At the end of the meeting, one person said, "I like how clearly you explain your ideas." That sentence stayed with me. Clearly. Not perfectly. Not like a native speaker. Clearly. And that was enough. Later that night, I thought about my journey. The frustration. The doubt. The day I almost quit. The small breakthrough. And now this. English was no longer something I was chasing. It was something I was using. There is a big difference. When you chase something, you feel behind. When you use something, you feel capable. The next week, I noticed more changes. I was watching a documentary in English. No subtitles. And I understood the emotional tone, not just the words. I caught jokes. I understood sarcasm. I noticed how speakers connected ideas smoothly. My listening had improved. But more importantly, my confidence had grown. If you want to improve your American English listening skills, remember this. Listening and speaking are connected. When you listen regularly, your brain builds patterns. When you speak regularly, those patterns become active. It is like training a muscle. Slow repetition. Consistent practice. Gradual strength. Another unexpected moment happened a few days later. I needed to write a short email in English. In the past, this would take me 30 minutes. I would check every sentence. Translate every phrase. This time, I just wrote. Naturally. I checked for small errors, of course. But I did not panic. The sentences came easier. Not advanced. Not complicated. But natural. I realized something beautiful. English was becoming automatic. There is a quiet stage in language learning. It happens after frustration. After doubt. After almost quitting. It is the stage where you stop fighting the language and start living with it. That is where I was. Not fluent. Not finished, but comfortable. And comfort is powerful. If you feel stuck right now, listen carefully. You may be closer than you think. Growth feels slow while it is happening. You do not feel smarter every day. You do not notice improvement every hour. But one day, you speak for 10 minutes without fear. One day, you understand a video without subtitles. One day, someone says, "I understand you clearly." And that is when you realize you have changed. Part 11 is not about reaching the top. It is about finding your voice. Your English voice. It may sound different from others. It may carry your accent, your rhythm, your personality. That is not weakness. That is identity. When English became my voice, I stopped comparing myself to native speakers. I stopped measuring myself against unrealistic standards. Instead, I asked, can I express my ideas clearly? Can I understand others without panic? If the answer was yes, even slowly, that was success. This journey taught me something deeper than vocabulary. It taught me patience, resilience, self-trust. And those qualities are more important than grammar rules. As we prepare for part 12, I want you to reflect. Not on what you cannot do, but on what you can do now that you could not do before. Maybe you understand more. Maybe you speak longer. Maybe you feel less afraid. That is transformation. You started this slow English listening practice story as a learner full of doubt. Now, you are a learner with experience, with momentum, with evidence of growth. Part 12 will not be about perfection. It will be about continuation. Because language learning does not end. It evolves. Keep listening slowly. Keep speaking bravely. Keep trusting your progress. Your English is no longer just a goal. It is becoming your voice. The journey never. The final chapter of our slow English listening practice story. But it is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a new one. When I started learning English, I believed there would be a final moment. A perfect moment. A day when I would wake up and say, I am fluent now. No fear. No mistakes. No hesitation. But after everything, the doubt, the frustration, the breakthrough, the conversations, I understand something different. Fluency is not a destination. It is a direction. Months after joining that online discussion group, English became part of my daily life. Not as a task. Not as homework. But as a tool. I listened to podcasts while walking. I watched interviews without subtitles. I wrote short journal entries in English at night. Some days were strong. Some days were slow. But none of them felt impossible anymore. That is the real transformation. If you have followed this Learn English Through Story series from Part 1 to Part 12, think about how much has changed. At the beginning, English felt heavy. Every sentence required effort. Every conversation caused anxiety. Every mistake felt personal. Now, mistakes feel normal. Pauses feel natural. Silence does not feel like failure. That emotional change is as important as vocabulary. One evening, I had a long video call with someone I had never met before. We talked for almost 1 hour. About culture. About goals. About fears. About the future. At one point, I realized something beautiful. I was not thinking about English. I was thinking about ideas. English was simply the bridge. And when language becomes a bridge instead of a wall, you are free. For those practicing English Listening Practice 2026, here is the truth no one tells you. There is no final level. There is no finished version of you. Even native speakers learn new words every year. Even confident speakers hesitate sometimes. Language is alive. And because it is alive, your journey continues. I still improve. I still learn new expressions. I still sometimes search for the right word. But now, I am not afraid of that process. Because I understand something powerful. Confidence does not come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing you can handle what you do not know. When I look back at the day I almost quit, I feel grateful. If I had stopped then, I would have missed all of this. The small victories. The deeper conversations. The quiet pride. The freedom to express myself. You do not need to be perfect to be powerful. You need persistence. If you are listening slowly right now, I want you to imagine your future self. 1 year from today. You are watching a movie in English comfortably. You are speaking without fear in a meeting. You are writing messages naturally. That future version of you is not created in one big moment. It is built in small daily practice. 10 minutes. 20 minutes. Consistent repetition. Slow listening. Brave speaking. Here is what this entire journey taught me. 1. Consistency beats intensity. 2. Small daily effort creates large long-term results. 3. Fear decreases when action increases. 4. Confidence grows from experience. 5. The only real failure is quitting. Everything else is part of learning. As this slow English listening practice story ends, your real practice begins. Do not wait for motivation. Create routine. Do not wait for confidence. Create evidence. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Start where you are, with what you have. You might still have days of doubt. That is normal. You might still compare yourself to others. That is human. But now, you know something you did not know before. Progress is quiet. Growth is gradual. And you are capable of both. There is one more thing I want to share. Language learning is not just about language. It changes how you see yourself. When you learn English, you prove that you can grow. That you can adapt. That you can stay committed to something difficult. Those qualities will help you in every part of your life. Career. Relationships. Personal goals. English is just the beginning. If you ever feel discouraged again, return to this story. Remember the early frustration. Remember the small breakthrough. Remember the first confident conversation. And remember that you continued. That decision, to continue, was the turning point. Right now, as you finish part 12, pause for a moment. Think about one thing you can do tomorrow. Listen to 5 minutes of English audio. Repeat 10 sentences out loud. Write 3 lines in a journal. Have one short conversation. Keep it simple. Keep it consistent. Keep it real. This is not goodbye. It is continuation. Your English journey does not end here. It evolves. You will reach new levels. You will face new challenges. You will discover new strengths. And each time, you will remember. You did not quit. You stayed. You grew. Thank you for staying through this entire Learn English Through Story, Slow English Listening Practice 2026 series. More importantly, thank yourself. Because you showed up. You listened. You practiced. You believed, maybe slowly, but you believed. And that belief changes everything. Keep listening. Keep speaking. Keep building your voice. Your journey never ends. And that is the most beautiful part. Before you click away, pause for just a second. Close your eyes. Think about who you were before you started this journey. The hesitation. The fear of speaking. The silent frustration when you could not understand fast English. Now think about who you are at this moment. You stayed. You listened. You practiced. You grew. That is not small. That is transformation. But here is something even more powerful. This was not just a story about slow English listening practice. It was proof that you can change. And if you can train your mind to understand a new language, what else can you train yourself to do? What doors will open when your English speaking confidence becomes natural? What opportunities will appear when you no longer translate in your head? What conversations are waiting for you? The truth is, this is only chapter 1. Because real fluency is not built in 12 parts. It is built in daily moments. In the quiet mornings when you choose to practice. In the evenings when you repeat sentences out loud. In the brave seconds when you decide to speak instead of staying silent. And something new is coming. The next series will go deeper. Real-life American conversations. Advanced listening challenges. Shadowing practice for natural pronunciation. Confidence-building speaking drills. Not harder. Smarter. Stronger. If this story helped you even a little. If you felt encouraged. If you practiced your English listening skills with me. Then this is your moment. Subscribe to the channel now. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new lesson. Comment below, I will not quit. Let that sentence be your commitment. Because this channel is not just about learning English in 2026. It is about building confidence. Building discipline. Building a version of yourself that does not give up. And here is something important. 1 year from today, someone will be watching your progress. Maybe a friend. Maybe your family. Maybe your future employer. Maybe even your future self. What will they see? The person who stopped? Or the person who kept going? Stay with this community. Practice with every Learn English Through Story episode. Repeat. Shadow. Speak. Grow. Your fluency is not far away. It is forming quietly inside you. And the next breakthrough? It might happen in the next video. I'll see you there.